by taking a look at the day's headlines. President Moon Jae-in says President Trump wants to push ahead with the denuclearization process with North Korea. He adds that Trump is willing to help the North Korean leader get whatever he wants in return for the regime's denuclearization. Financial markets around the world could get a boost this week after the leaders of the US and China shake hands at the G20 summit on a 90-day truce in their trade battle. Plus, South Korea's National Assembly misses the legal deadline to approve the government's budget for next year. It means a vote will probably have to wait until sometime in the coming week. Our top story this morning. President Moon Jae-in has revealed that US President Donald Trump told him he's willing to listen to the North Korean leader's wishes if it helps the denuclearization process along. This comes after the two leaders met over the weekend on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Argentina. Our presidential office correspondent Shin Se-min starts us off.
A message from Trump to Kim. President Moon Jae-in says he's carrying a message from U.S. President Donald Trump to Kim Jong-un should the North Korean leader make a reciprocal visit to Seoul by the end of the year.
또 트럼프 대통령은 김정은 위원장이 연내 서울 답방할 경우에 김정은 위원장에게 그 메시지를 전해달라는 그런 당부를 저한테 하기도 했습니다. 그런 만큼 김정은 위원장과 함께 남은 이 합의를 다 마저 이행하기를 바라고 또 김정은 위원장이 바라는 바를 자기가 이루어주겠다 뭐 이런 메시지를 전해달라는 당부를 하기도 했습니다.
President Moon explained that Trump's remarks don't necessarily mean concessions or sanctions relief. Instead, he said it could be things like the scaling down of South Korea-U.S. joint military drills or non-political exchanges like sports and cultural events. The South Korean leader added that through his pull aside with President Trump in Argentina, he felt a certain burden lifted of his shoulders.
어제 트럼프 대통령과의 그 회동을 통해서 한 가지 우려를 든 것은 혹시 북미 간의 뭐 2차 정상회담이라든지 또는 고위급 회담이 이루어지기 전에 남북 간에 먼저 또 이렇게 답방이 이루어지면 혹시라도 그런 것이 뭐 부담으로 작용하지 않을까 뭐 이런 염려가 없지 않았는데 어제 트럼프 대통령과 회동을 통해서 그런 이제 우려는 맡김이 사라졌다라는 말씀을 드릴 수 있겠습니다.
President Moon said whether or not Kim Jong-un comes to Seoul completely depends on him, and they'll have to wait and see what happens. But if it goes ahead, the South Korean leader said it would be a truly historic moment.
김정은 위원장의 서울 답방이 이루어진다면 그 자체로서 이 세계에 이렇게 보내는 평화적인 어떤 메시지, 그다음에 또 비핵화에 대한 의지, 또 남북 관계 발전에 대한 의지 모든 것을 다 담고 있는 것이라고 봅니다.
With President Moon back in the seat as the lead mediator, the question now is how that message from President Trump would provide momentum for the stalled denuclearization process and how North Korea would react to that. And we should know the answers in the coming weeks as North Korea's Kim Jong-un's international appearance doesn't look far away. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Auckland.
Now, President Moon has also been hailing the strength of South Korea-US relations. His latest comments will likely quash rising speculation that there's been discord between the two allies over how to deal with North Korea. Hwang Ho-jun with the details.
President Moon Jae-in is insisting relations between Seoul and Washington are airtight when it comes to North Korea. Asked about how he views concerns the two allies' respective North Korea policies are out of lockstep, President Moon dismissed the question, saying there's no basis to the speculation.
트럼프 대통령과 여러 차례 만나고 또 이렇게 통화하고 하면서 이제는 상당한 신뢰, 그다음에 우위가 구축되었다. 그런 생각을 가지고 있거든요. 이렇게 한미 간에 불협화음이 있다든지 이런 부분에 대해서 도대체 어떤 근거로 그런 식의 이야기를 한지 모르겠어요.
He then confirmed once and for all that there's absolutely no daylight between the two allies in pursuing a nuclear-free Korean Peninsula. Such confidence, the president says, is based on the change that has happened over the past year, saying there has not been a single nuclear or missile launch so far. President Moon Jae-in added that in order to carry out the promises of the Singapore summit between leaders Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, there needs to be a timetable worked out between the two.
그 부분에 대해서 싱가포르 회담에서는 원칙적인 합의만 이룬 것이기 때문에 제2차 북미 정상회담에서 그 부분에 대해서 조금 더 큰 타임테이블에 대한 논의까지 들어가는 것이 바람직하다. 2차 북미 정상회담만 해도 내년 초 그러면 얼마 남지 않은 것이거든요. 저는 이 과정이 이렇게 잘 이루어지리라고 그렇게 낙관적으로 보고 있습니다.
The promise made in June includes 4 pillars: the regime's denuclearization, returning the remains of American war dead, the normalization of relations between the North and the US, and finally, securing the regime's safety. While President Moon sees the next Kim-Trump summit as an important opportunity to speed things up, he said he's not at all concerned about the slow progress made over the past month or two. Instead, he expresses optimism the process will turn out just fine. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, US President Donald Trump says his next summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will likely take place in January or February next year. Returning home from the G20 summit in Argentina, Trump told reporters on board Air Force One that 3 venues are under consideration, but he refrained from offering more details on that. He also explained he pledged with Chinese President Xi Jinping to cooperate fully on the North Korean issue, aiming to make a peaceful, nuclear-free Korean Peninsula. President Moon Jae-in is calling on South Korea and Japan to cleverly handle their uncomfortable history and secure future-looking relations that are not affected by what happened in the past. Speaking on his flight to New Zealand, President Moon said it's hard to say the relations are smooth as historical events can always be brought up. But President Moon stressed the need for Japan's participation in the denuclearization of North Korea and the ongoing peace process. He said he hopes to take a 2-track approach with Tokyo on North Korea, something he says the Japanese government will agree to. Now, President Moon, who is in New Zealand on the 3rd and final leg of his week-long trip around the world, has a packed schedule on his first day in the country. President Moon, on a state visit there, held a meeting with the Governor-General of New Zealand, Patsy Reddy, which has continued on to a state luncheon with the couple after being welcomed at an official welcoming ceremony. Earlier in the day, he made a trip to the New Zealand Tomb of the Unknown Warrior to pay respects to New Zealand's fallen heroes. In the evening, the president will also meet with Koreans living in Auckland, where he will likely praise their role in bridging relations between the two nations. The United States and China have finalized a trade war ceasefire, suspending any new tariffs amid the escalating trade war between the world's 2 largest economies. China's state-run media outlets also welcomed the agreement, but pointed out that the 2 countries still have an awful lot to work on. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed great confidence on the trade war truce he reached with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Argentina. Returning home, Trump told reporters on board Air Force One that it's a, quote, incredible deal that would have an incredibly positive impact on farming. Sitting down for dinner at the G20 summit, the 2 leaders agreed that Washington will withdraw its plan to raise tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese imports from 10 to 25%. Following the meeting, the White House explained the 2 sides will aim to bridge the differences in opinion within 90 days, adding that if no deal is reached, they agreed to raise the tariff rate to 25%. On Sunday, China's state-run media CCTV hailed the agreement reached by Trump and Xi, but refrained from mentioning the 90-day deadline.
Its state news agency Xinhua also welcomed the deal, explaining that it has offered Beijing some breathing space. Adding the latest summit halted the escalation of the trade tensions between the world's two largest economies. It also admitted a long road lies ahead to solve the issue in a practical manner. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
South Korea's Air Force says it will conduct large-scale combat exercises all throughout this week. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff on this Monday, the ROK Air Force will carry out drills to maintain a high level of defense readiness and improve the mission capability of its pilots. The Joint Chiefs of Staff added that there will also be a joint South Korea-US Air Force exercise at the battalion level or lower, along with the ROK Air Force's solo drill. This comes after South Korea and the US suspended one of their largest joint military exercises, Vigilant Ace, back in October to support the ongoing diplomatic efforts with North Korea. Now, it's time to take a look at the stories making headlines around the world, and for that we turn to our very own Noah Adam. So, Adam, what do you have lined up for us today?
Well, Mark, we start with some sad news, I'm afraid. World leaders and fellow politicians alike are paying tribute to the 41st President of the United States, George H.W. Bush, who died on Friday at the age of 94. With more details, our Lee Seung-jae reports.
George Herbert Walker Bush, a man who set the bar higher and higher each time. From captaining the Yale baseball team to serving as the youngest aviator in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Later, he would rise up the ranks of American politics as a congressman for Texas, an envoy to China, the director of the CIA, vice president to President Ronald Reagan, and finally becoming the 41st president of the United States. The man who saw one of his sons follow his footsteps and become the 43rd U.S. president died on Friday in Houston at the age of 94. World leaders have been paying tribute to the former president. Chinese President Xi Jinping expressed his condolences during a meeting with President Trump on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Argentina. The Chinese leader said Bush was an old friend of the Chinese people who made important contributions to the China-U.S. friendship and relationship during his lifetime. Bush is best remembered in China for his time spent in the country as Washington's unofficial ambassador in the mid-1970s, as he was often dubbed the bicycle-riding envoy for the many hours he spent cycling through Beijing's streets. Ex-Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev expressed his condolences to the Bush family and all Americans as the two worked closely to help end the Cold War. British Prime Minister Theresa May called Bush a true friend of the UK. French President Emmanuel Macron said he remembered Bush as a world leader who strongly supported the alliance with Europe. President Trump canceled a planned press conference at the G20 summit on Saturday, citing respect for the late former president. Trump said Bush will be remembered as a man of sound judgment, common sense, and unflappable leadership. President Trump is also set to attend the state funeral set for Wednesday. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The UN's climate chief has warned of what she called the urgent threat of climate change. Patricia Espinosa urged delegates from nearly 200 nations gathered at a climate change conference in Poland to do more to tackle the issue. 4 former presidents of the UN talks, including those behind the iconic Paris Climate Accord, also issued a joint statement calling for decisive action. The meeting in Katowice is being described as the most critical on climate change since the 2015 Paris Agreement. However, political divisions were apparent, with Brazil withdrawing its offer to host next year's talks. At the G20 summit in Argentina, meanwhile, the US also reiterated its withdrawal from that Paris deal. French President Emmanuel Macron has ordered his Prime Minister to talk with political leaders and demonstrators to resolve violent protests that have left large parts of Paris in ruins. Macron assessed the damage after the third weekend of national protests by the so-called Yellow Vests movement. His government, meanwhile, is considering whether or not to declare a state of emergency. The protests began over increased fuel taxes, but have since grown into wider anger over Macron's agenda. More than 400 people were arrested in the latest riots, and more than 260 others were injured nationwide. Brazil's most famous Christmas tree has returned after a 2-year hiatus to officially kick off the holiday season there. Hundreds of thousands of locals and tourists flocked to see the lighting of the 70-metre tall tree, which is floating on a lagoon in Rio de Janeiro, as you can see there. The ceremony also included a 7-minute fireworks display. A lack of funding was said to have been the reason for its absence over the past 2 years, but this season the tree will be lit until January the 6th.
Well, thank you as always to our Noah Down for the world news there. Now back here in South Korea, the December 2nd deadline for the National Assembly to vote on the 2019 budget came and went, unfortunately. Rival party lawmakers spent the whole weekend pretty much around the clock deliberating, but to no avail. All eyes are on whether the National Assembly Speaker will use his authority to force through the budget bill in its original form while waiting for parties to complete their negotiations and draw up a new version. Our National Assembly correspondent Kim Min-ji with this report.
Marathon deliberations are underway at the National Assembly as rival parties seek a compromise on the budget for next year. The spending plan is being reviewed by just the representatives of the 3 main parties on the Budget Committee, after the committee as a whole failed to finish its deliberations before November 30th, as stipulated by the National Assembly Act. The legal deadline for voting on the budget is December 2nd. With that deadline all but missed, the ruling Democratic Party is aiming to have the bill ready for a vote by Monday, while the 2 biggest opposition parties are demanding that they have until Friday. Monday looks tough, though, given that the rival parties are still far apart on some areas. The likely scenario is that once the Budget Committee representatives are done, the proposal will be tossed to the floor leaders and party policy chiefs.
The floor leaders and policy chiefs will likely handle the contentious areas as well as tax-related issues overall.
Some of the issues being debated include spending on job creation in the public sector and inter-Korean projects, as well as an expected shortfall in tax revenue.
We've made significant progress, but there's been more of a standstill on issues like job creation and inter-Korean projects. We'll probably have to work into the wee hours.
For now, the vote appears on track for some time between the dates the rival parties have each specified, but with public criticism of the delay, they're under pressure. Last year, the budget was passed 4 days after the legal deadline. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
So let's stay with domestic politics. The ruling Democratic Party in the government met this morning to discuss ways to ease market saturation in the convenience store sector. And if you're in Korea, you'll know how many of those there are on every street. The 2 sides agreed that physical distance between stores needs to be taken into account, as well as the market characteristics of different regions. They also agreed that owners should be able to close down their stores more easily in times of financial difficulty by providing exemptions and cuts to penalty fees. The Fair Trade Commission will unveil more details on the government's plan on Tuesday. The launch of South Korea's new satellite, the new Sat-1, has been delayed once again due to poor weather conditions. According to the Ministry of Science and ICT on Sunday, the satellite launch will take place now at the Vandenberg Air Force Base in California on Tuesday morning local time. The 107-kilogram satellite was originally planned to be put into orbit last month, but was postponed multiple times due to the inspection of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket, as well as weather issues. South Korea currently operates 4 satellites for weather and Earth observation. Now, virtual reality technology is generally used for entertainment or educational contents, but its use is spreading to the medical sector here in South Korea. A local hospital has started running a therapy program featuring VR gadgets to treat patients who have certain mental disorders. Jo Sung-min reports.
생각을 더 깊이 있게 정리해서 말이 자연스럽게 흐를 수 있도록 연습해 보세요.
This man wearing a VR set has been diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. Using this gear, he is simulating conversations with strangers to try and get used to meeting other people in the real world. This is one of the programs launched recently on a trial basis by a local hospital to help people with mental disorders or phobias get over their fears.
They still might feel anxious, but since they know it's only practice, they are not as stressed as would be meeting real people.
Therapists can assess how afraid the patients are using real-time data, such as their heart rate and the number of times they make virtual eye contact. Using the collected data, each patient is assigned to personalized VR programs for the social skills they need to improve most. The software developer says using the VR programs along with existing therapies will vastly improve the quality and results of treatment.
This program does not require much time or space. Users can do it whenever and wherever they'd like, and they can repeat the process over and over in conjunction with other treatments.
The hospital is currently testing the VR therapy sessions on 100 patients, and depending on the results, they will add the program officially starting next March. Jo Sung-min, Arirang News.
Now, the global impact of climate change and water resource management is becoming an increasingly pressing issue, both of those things. South Korea's water management company is shifting its focus from water quantity and development to creating a healthier water management system in a bid to do what it can to tackle these issues. Our Park Se-young with more.
The Korea Water Resources Corporation, or K-Water, has recently announced its new vision of providing everyone with clean water regardless of where they live. By constructing a water circulation system that encompasses the nation's water quality, water quantity, and aquatic ecosystem, the governmental agency pledges to create and share its new values.
Our biggest change will be the shift in focus from development to management and from water quantity to the environment and to water quality.
With environmental and social values as the first priority, the agency will stop unnecessary development and focus on creating clean water resources through sustainable integrated water management. By doing so, K-Water hopes to improve their services domestically and become global water experts. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Good morning. Most regions are having a dark and rainy Monday. Rain is in the forecast until the mid-afternoon. Then it will take a break before it rains again tomorrow. Seoul should see showers letting up before noon. Jeollanam-do province and Jeju will see up to 50 millimeters of showers today. Seoul will receive light rainfall of less than 5 millimeters, and other regions should see 5 to 30 millimeters of precipitation. Temperatures for the day will be even milder than yesterday though, but we will definitely notice big temperature drops this week. Readings will plunge on Wednesday and expect an icy cold morning starting Wednesday morning. In fact, we'll have a near 20-degree temperature drop this week. Brace for bitter cold temperatures from today's morning lows of 9.3 degrees to -9 degrees by Saturday morning. But for now, here are the readings for this afternoon. Seoul should hit 15 degrees Celsius, but rain and clouds will make it feel a bit chillier. While most regions will see highs in the upper teens to low 20s, but Chuncheon should only get up to 8 degrees Celsius this afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to us here at Arirang TV. And a reminder that our next newscast will be coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
Overseas TV Audience Survey. Arirang TV and Gallup Korea are conducting research on viewer opinions. Your honest answers will be used for the development of Arirang TV. From November 1st to the 24th, you can participate in the survey through our website, www.arirang.com. We will send an autographed CD to randomly chosen respondents as a token of our appreciation.